Today we are hanging a projector up on this drop ceiling, and then we're going to get the screen up over here. So we already got our wires running up through the wall, up through the ceiling, got our outlet up there for the projector, and I'm going to use a little ceiling mount, just a relatively inexpensive mount from Amazon. You can actually hang this off a wall or down from the ceiling. I'm going to do the ceiling option. So if we look up here in my ceiling, you see the floor joists up there. I've got to put a support up in those joists. So we got that right here. Just gonna use a spare that I had sitting around. I've already put my 4 screws I've got in there. And then before I stick it up there on the joists, I'm gonna take this mount and we're gonna drill those holes and get that on there securely as well. And I would say probably the only challenging part of this job is gonna be we're gonna have to come through one of the ceiling panels. So lining up where we put our hole in the drop ceiling tile, that's gonna be slightly challenging, but we'll figure it out. We got a little bit of wiggle room and we'll try to not make the hole too big. But hopefully when all is said and done, we'll be watching some awesome movies on this projector screen. All right, so we got our mounting bracket here. Just gonna set it on there. We're gonna mark our holes. We're gonna pre-drill before we put in the bolts. It's got some pretty heavy duty bolts here that are gonna go into this. I'd say all in all, this thing is pretty hefty duty. This thing's pretty heavy. So hopefully that'll do a good job holding the projector as we get it up there. All right, making a little bit of progress up here. So we got our support board mounted, just did 2 screws either side here into our floor joist. This is the bracket where we're gonna mount the arm for the projector holder. So now we gotta work on, I'm gonna temporarily put the support arm in here, and we're just gonna measure how far off of each of these ceiling brackets that we are, so we know where to drill the hole in the ceiling tile. All right, so good news before I drill this hole in the ceiling tile. The good news is these are the cheapest ceiling tiles Lowe's will sell. So if I really screw this up, all I'm doing is going to Lowe's to get a new one. So I'm gonna use this square here, and that's gonna show me the number of inches I am from this back side, and then I'm gonna do the same from this side over here. Not like that, but actually up here. And that will show me where I need to measure on my ceiling tile in order to make that cut. All right, so we got our ceiling tile down on the floor, and I measured from that corner and then measured up this way. And then we've got 4 lines we did. This square here represents where that arm needs to come down. So my center of my hole has got to be right here. I'm just gonna use a drywall hole saw, just like this, very simple. And we're gonna try to line that up right in the middle. That's gonna give us a little bit of space, a little bit of wiggle room for error. And of course, if I was really off, we can either try a new tile, or I have some adjustment up there on my bracket if I need to adjust it slightly. Okay, so this kind of makes a horrible mess. So you're gonna wanna have your shop vac handy. Makes a lot of dust, but there's our hole. Let's hope for the best here that we got it lined up right. Okay, good news. Nailed it. Looks like that's right in the middle. Now we got a little extra space there. That's okay. We got to thread some wires through. Need the HDMI cord to come through. Need the power cord to come through. And then one thing I like about this type of mount is because it is a shelf mount, the projector really just sits on it. And with that power cord coming through the hole, it means if I want to take the projector somewhere, do a movie night somewhere else, do a presentation somewhere, the projector can easily be taken off the shelf and taken somewhere. Okay, almost done with the ceiling portion here. Don't know if you can see that. I got 4 screws to do on either side to hold the arm. Got my power cable, my HDMI cable down through the ceiling, and then we can actually attach the shelf part that will hold the projector. Once we do that, we can go ahead and throw an image, throw a movie up onto the wall, and that will help me mark where I need to hang my screen. So I guess one thing to note about the complexity of this job here up in my ceiling, one thing you may notice is this drop ceiling is very tight to the actual floor joist. So I've only got about 8 inches or so to work with here. The nice thing about that, it makes the room feel very big. The ceiling is very high. You might have a little bit more room to play with. This arm on the projector shelf is adjustable. So you can actually, you can see a little screw. Maybe you can see that. There's a little screw right here. Loosen that, and this arm will actually slide up and down. So once you get your projector on there, you can decide how close you need it up to the ceiling. All right, so we got the projector up here, and we're just throwing an image on the wall. I'm gonna use some painter's tape. I'm gonna mark each side here And then that's gonna help me know where to install my screen so that it will land right within that window. All right, so wrapping up here, went ahead and projected onto the wall. That allowed me to know where I need to line my screen up. Got one side into the stud, the other side into the drywall. That looks pretty good, but it looks like the projector lined up pretty well. And one thing to keep in mind, what makes this a little bit easier for this projector, I can't speak for yours, but for this one, I actually need to turn it upside down, because when you do a ceiling mount, typically you will mount it on the bottom and then it is gonna throw down toward the floor. If you do this right side up, it's mostly gonna be projecting onto the ceiling and you would need to angle it significantly. But in the settings of your projector, you should be able to invert your image. Now, obviously, if I pull it off of the mount here and want to use it somewhere else, I'm going to have to go ahead and invert that image again in the settings. But I think everything turned out pretty well. Let me know what you think. Now I got to work on my sound here. The sound wires are already up into the ceiling, so I got to get these back and then the rear ones set up as well.